Welcome everyone to the February Hangout. Great to be here. Thanks very much for joining me. I can see I've got people here already, which is fantastic. Nice to see everyone. So I've got the chat window open here, got the camera here, and we're going to look at some chess here as well. So it's all going on. Welcome Chess Improvements and Tim and Yasiru. Kai as well. Excellent. I can see numbers growing already. That's great. Just a second. I've got some error message on my computer. That doesn't bode well. No, let's remove that and hope we're okay. Dennis Duyar from Istanbul. Fantastic. Greetings to you, Dennis. What a city. I loved Istanbul. I was there a very long time ago and it was sensational. Good, all working, apparently. Rec Jack, hey man. Good, okay, well, I'm just going to wait for a few more people to arrive, but let me tell you what we're going to do today. I've got a puzzle to start with that was set by Mr. Howard Staunton, no less, the greatest English chess player of the 19th century, arguably. He defeated the French player Saint-Amand in 1841, I seem to recall. If I've got that wrong, I hope I haven't got that wrong. And claimed to be, well, the best in Europe, let's say, at that time. He was a phenomenal player in mid-19th century. Anyway, Howard Staunton seems to be having a revival because he has a Twitter handle. And he sets little puzzles now and again, which I retweeted, and it was a mate in 3, and lots of people got very confused by it. So I'm going to show that puzzle and see if you can solve that one. Then I'm going to be looking at a couple of, if I've got time, a couple of games by Korchnoi played against the Czech Benoni. There was some little discussion online about the merits of the Czech Benoni, and I kind of curled my lip up at it in one of my videos, so I'll be looking at that. I've also got a game that was sent to me by, I can see Tim Worrell there. I've got a game that was sent to me by Tim Worrell, by one of his pupils, no less, so I'm going to be looking at that. Let me see. Let me just say hi to everyone. Kolkata, oh great, another fantastic city. Hamburg, guten Abend, Hardy. And from Poland, Florida, Casey Jones, that's a hell of a name. Casey Jones, tooting at the whistle. From Florida. Mark Halsby says, it may not be the real Howard Staunton, just saying. You might have a point there, I don't know. Anyway, I'm a fan of Howard Staunton. Greetings from Israel. Hi there. From Mumbai, Cape Town. Staunton Saint-Amand was 1843. I knew that, but forgot it. Hebden Bridge Chess Club. Greetings to Hebden Bridge Chess Club. Excellent. A very beautiful part of the world in Yorkshire. From Turkey, New York, Rockefeller Yo is in New York. Greetings to the Lake District. Fantastic. We've got our first question. When did Donati 880 asks, when did I start to play chess? I was 5 years old when I learnt the moves, which was a very long time ago. And I was taught by my father, and he taught me and my brother at the same time. And my brother could always beat me. He was older than me, and he always beat me. I think I'm just going to block someone there. Just a second, if I can do that. Just a second. Yeah, sorry. Just blocking someone there. That was a bit weird. That's an interesting question from Edinson Jimenez, or Jimenez, Edinson Jimenez. Says, hey, Mr. King, whose active Grandmaster personal lifestyle do you admire, respect the most? That's a really interesting question. So in other words, their lifestyle away from the chessboard. Do I respect the most? It's a really interesting question. I guess I have to reflect my own lifestyle. So these days, though I say it myself, I'm pretty solid. You know, I'm married with a couple of kids. I take my health seriously, and yeah, I like to do my work, and I'm pretty solid. So, you know, from those grandmasters who have a solid lifestyle, just like me, well, Vichy, he's a great man and a great person, and Radislav Wojtaszek from Poland, also a solid guy, very strong player. So, you know, these guys with a good work ethic, I like that. I know it sounds really boring. If you asked me 25 years ago, I'd have, when I was in my wild years, let's put it like that, then I've probably said, you know, Bardo Jabala, great guy, likes to party. And that was me 25 years ago. There we go. Let me see. We've got Akshay Shegonkar asks, what do I do other than chess? Well, I like to go and watch Brentford Football Club. As One Love has just mentioned, yeah, we had a bad weekend, I'm afraid. I like to play music. I really love playing music. So I play the guitar, I play the electric bass guitar, I play the double bass, I mess around on the piano. I like to go to concerts, all kinds of concerts, classical, rock, whatever. Lots of questions. Loads of really interesting questions. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you this position I was talking about. That was from set by the Howard Staunton Twitter handle. So just let me share the screen 1 second. It's a nice puzzle. This was set by a composer in the 19th century, Mr. Kidson. I'm not exactly sure who Mr. Kidson is, but anyway. Now, hopefully you can see that. How's that? Yeah, that'll do. Maybe I should just get rid of that. So in this position, it is, before I take any more of your questions, so just hang back with the questions, folks, otherwise I've got to scroll back. This position is white to play and mate in 3. White to play and mate in 3. Hopefully you can all see that very clearly. White to play in checkmate in 3. This is from the 19th century. I'm afraid I don't know who Mr. Kidson is. He's the composer of this problem. Of course, white is winning, but how do you checkmate in 3 moves? We've got Mark Hulsby says Queen F7, but let me go through that. If you play Queen F7, then I'll play, of course, I won't do that. That's mate in 2. Instead, knight F5 check. And, well, that's the second move white's had. And, well, I can play anything here, basically, but I'll play rook takes. And you have a mate in 1. No, you don't. So that'll be mate in 4. So the puzzle, so basically a fail. And likewise, queen g6. Of course, I'm not going to play bishop takes because that's mate, but instead I'll play knight takes, and that's check. And then that's also mating 4. So I'm afraid that's not correct. Bofilio Contradictus says, I'm not a patron. Am I allowed to chat? Of course you're allowed to chat. You are chatting right now. Okay, we have a couple of people with the right solution. Just a moment. Let me go back. Hang on. Yes. So basically, black is very short of moves here. This is black's problem, that if it were black to move here, then of course black would lose instantly. So somehow you have to give black the move. Ah, Gabe in LA. How are you? I hope you're feeling a bit better. So no, I'm afraid knight f7 is not the move, because this is check, you see. That's check. Only one way to checkmate in 3 moves, and that's king h3. And after h4, now there is only one move. When this was discussed on Twitter the other day, a lot of people were saying, oh, it's either queen f7 or queen g6. No, it's not. I'm afraid it's not. Only one of those moves will do. If queen g6, then black still escapes with rook h5. So the move is queen f7. That is the only way to checkmate in 3. And now black has no good move. This is a threat. If bishop takes, then knight takes. And if, whoops, hang on. If, well, rook f8, then you can just take that. And I don't think there's any other move in that position. So that is the only way to checkmate in 3 moves. Action replay, let's go back here. King h3, only move to checkmate in 3. And then queen f7 is the move. There you go. That clears that one up. I have to say I quite like, I like studies in general. I'm not so keen on those problems where it looks like they've just kind of dropped the pieces on the board. Nevertheless, they are good training for calculation. And, I think the ones that have interesting checkmating patterns like that one, I think are, I think they're beneficial, actually. Mark Horsby says, so I was completely wrong, but only completely. Fantastic. Let me go back and take some of your questions. Wait a second. Let me see. IG2D says, you reviewed about 8 years ago a really interesting masterpiece involving an early knight g5 by white for strategic reasons. I vaguely remember he had a Scandinavian name. Any ideas what the game was? I'm afraid that one doesn't spring to mind. I don't know that. It's curious. Can't help you on that one, I'm afraid. Don't know. Effa Bofilio contradicts us, asks, is there a way to get chess-based cheaply or some alternatives? I'm afraid you just have to splash out. But this is just an absolute must for every serious chess player. You must have chess base. Kasparov studies are very nice. Yes, very nice indeed. There was a question from Tim up there. Wait a second. Let me just scroll back and find it. Tim Morrill asks, you quite often say, I was always happy to see this line over the board, e.g. anti-Sicilians. Were there any lines or openings that you hoped your opponent wouldn't play, even the exchange French? It's funny, I never minded playing with black against the exchange French, actually. I always, if my opponent played e takes d5 against my French, I just thought, great, I've got an equal position here, and I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be checkmated. It was a relief. If my opponent came at me with hammer and tongs and tried to checkmate me, that was more worrying. Let me see. Craig Fraser asks, since you loved Game Changer so much, do you think it's a bit sad that AlphaZero is effectively retired? Not really. No. I think, in a way, if AlphaZero were kind of hanging around in the background all the time, I think that would be worse, actually, because we'd always be sort of looking over our shoulder. What would AlphaZero say? I think what's exciting about AlphaZero is that it has confirmed that there are many more ways to play chess than we'd imagined, actually. And that playing in a very enterprising way can be really successful. So I think that's the exciting thing about AlphaZero. But also, I think it's great that basically one of the reasons they're not continuing with the AlphaZero chess project is that they don't want to devote their resources to chess. They want real-world applications for their technology, and they have a really strong ethos in DeepMind that this technology will not be used for armaments or some kind of defensive capability. They want to solve, for example, medical problems, which I think is great. Well, obviously. Siddhartha Sanayak asks, does practicing tactics help in improving positional chess? Yes, I think it does. Definitely. Yeah. But it's just good for your game all round. Let me see. Synth Cliff says, my friend is working with a DeepMind team at Moorfields Eye Hospital. Fantastic. That's great. Moorfields is a wonderful institution here in London. For anyone that doesn't know, it's I've been there myself, as taking my parents there. I have to have their eyes checked, and I also had my eyes checked there a few years ago when I had a few problems. Tim Worrell asks, why do some Super GM tournaments deal with the latest razor-sharp theory and you have practically the same position on 5 boards and others, like Vike, offbeat lines or slice serves? I think it's a lot to do with the composition of these tournaments. I think Vike, or the Tata Steel tournament, they always manage to put together a very attractive field. When I say attractive, a mixed field. So you have promising juniors this year, like Jordan van Forest, and more enterprising players like Richard Rapport, and so that creates tension because the top players know they have to try and beat weak players, and so they can't just play in a routine way. And I think, and Tata Steel somehow, because there's a big live audience there, there is more pressure on the players to produce something interesting. So I think it's the particular conditions of a tournament. You know, if you get 10 players from the top 10 stuck in a hotel suite in, you know, the middle of nowhere, and it's all very comfortable, and they know that they're getting nice prize money wherever they come in the tournament. You know, they play it safe. You know, I think this is a big difference. Mark Halsby says, I blame computer prep. It's not just that. It's not just that. It's a whole spirit of a tournament. And I mean, I know this very well myself. Some tournaments, sort of, there's an enterprising spirit in them. And it sometimes comes just from the first games. You can feel that players are prepared to take risks. And I don't think it's anything to do with computer prep. Okay, there are loads of questions. So if you just hang back for the moment, otherwise I'll lose the thread. What I want to do is show you another game, because I think we need to look at some chess. And there was some discussion online on the channel about the Czech Benoni, and someone was asking about the Czech Benoni, and because I was really turned my nose up at it and saying I really don't think it's a very good opening, and I hold to that. I mean, it depends what level you're talking at, of course. You know, club chess, well, it's sort of playable. However, I think that you just don't see it at elite level in the top tournaments, and I think there's a good reason. So I wanted to show you a game by Korchnoi, where in fact, two games by Korchnoi, where he absolutely mangles the Czech Benoni. And these games made me laugh so much, because Korchnoi is such a direct player. And he obviously treated this opening with utter contempt, well, as we're about to see. So let me just switch boards. So just bear with me a moment. 1 second while I just hit the right button. Otherwise, the whole thing could go horribly wrong, as it sometimes does. Here we go. Viktor Korchnoi against Anatoly Lutakov, played in the Soviet semi-final tournament in 1952. So I think Korchnoi must have been very young, so 17 or 18 years old. So just hang back. I'm going to ask a question in a second, but so here we go with the Czech Benoni. Oh, just very quickly, let me just remind you of how Magnus played. Magnus's opponent played like this, which is a really bad version of the Czech Benoni, because, well, as Magnus demonstrated, once this knight comes here, then this is really pleasant for white, because you get to hit d6 very quickly. So let me just come back. Oh, Mark Halsby says he was 20 or 21. I'm getting my dates all wrong. Anyway, he was young. I thought he was born in 35. Which, well, anyway, we'll sort that out later. Mark Halsby says in May 52, Viktor Lovich was 21. Okay, I take your word for it. I thought he was born in 35, but there you go. So the Czech Benoni. Now, black plays here with g6. I suppose the traditional Czech Benoni is with bishop e7, and I want to show you a game that Korchnoi played against that in a second. So Lutkov plays a kind of hybrid King's Indian Czech Benoni. And it's fascinating to see how Korchnoi deals with this. Korchnoi had very little respect for the King's Indian. And well, this is just such a funny game. So bishop g5, I like that move straight away. It's a very provocative move. He's hoping that black is going to play h6 here. And then the bishop could go to h4, but actually, why not just come back? And then you can play here. Thomas Brown says he was born in 1931. There you go. I got it completely wrong. Thank you, Thomas. So he's 21. Okay. So after queen d2, then you're hitting the pawn on h6. So Lutkov isn't tempted by that. But just watch the directness of Korchnoi's play here. So first of all, g4. He's not worried. Okay, excuse me 1 second while I just... block that one. Sorry, folks. Okay, so here we go, g4. Black escapes from the pin, and now h4. So already this is a very, very strong attack. Notice that because the pawn is on c5, then black doesn't have the chance to play knight c5, for example, get a knight on c5, which can be irritating for white, or create counterplay. And there's no chance to play c6 and exchange here to get counterplay down the c file. Programming linguist says a Petrosian clamp. You could call it a Petrosian clamp if you like. I think people were doing it a long time before Petrosian, but anyway, that's fine. I mean, it's a kind of standard Yugoslav attack in the dragon as well. But yeah, you could call it a Petrosian clamp if you want to. Petrosian also enjoyed doing this in various King's Indian systems. But yes, this, as I'm saying, as I said, this is the problem with the Czech Benoni, with this pawn on c5. Actually, it blocks black's counterplay. The only thing that really black can do here is go for b5. But this is not the most worrying move on the board. It can either be taken or simply left. So let's go on with this. h5. Anne Lam K says, hello, Mr. King. Can you please pronounce Van Forest? Thank you very much. I did. I was upbraided by a Dutch chap who told me that my pronunciation was incorrect because I said Van Forest. Van Forest, apparently. Mark Halsby says, interesting that ChessBase classifies this game as E80. Samish variation rather than A56, which is the code associated with a pure Czech Benoni. Well, I think this is basically a King's Indian. Well, it's a hybrid. I don't get hung up on the names personally. Douglas Squirrel asks, what's the key element that makes this a Czech rather than a normal Benoni? Okay, good question. I'm going to have to go right back, but no, I won't go right back. Basically, it's this pawn triad here that makes it a Czech Benoni. And it means, in a normal Benoni, you have this pawn coming here to exchange, on d5, and you would have this open diagonal, if you see what I mean, which automatically makes for a more fluid center. But in the Czech Benoni, the center is closed and completely locked. So you can see how there's no counterplay on the long diagonal. There's no counterplay on the c file. And that makes it much easier for white to push either on this side of the board or this side of the board. And sometimes with f4 as well. This is the problem. Douglas Squirrel says, okay, thanks for saying, kind of like an advanced French, but on the other side of the board. Yeah, kind of. Yeah, mirrored. Yeah, you could say that. But a pretty bad one. I mean, a really bad one. And black is just getting completely whacked here. But what I love is Korchnoi's directness, because, he's not bothering to castle. He's just going for it straight away. He's basically only using a few pieces in the attack. Douglas Squirrel says, I'm no fan of the advanced French either. Yeah, well, okay. I mean, there are so many good ways to play this position for white now. White is, well, I was going to say completely winning, but that would be a slight exaggeration. You still need to finish this one off. Mohammed Ben El Hajj says black knight should be on c7 before playing a6, because you need a6 to play it, to play knight a6, knight c7, and then a6 for playing b5. Yeah, you can do that, but it often doesn't help, as we'll see in the next game. Right, over to you. Efe Bofilio contradicts us, says that is what completely winning means. Well, it's not completely winning. So here's my first question for you. How would you play here with white? What did Korchnoi play here? Over to you. Oh, it's gone very quiet. Mohammed Ben Al-Hajj says he castled. He could have just castled. There is nothing wrong with castling. Oh, yep, we have some excellent suggestions. Not knight b5. There's no need to go completely over the top. I think that would be an error. But instead, yeah, well, okay, I'm going to leave it there because I think several people have got the right idea. Korchnoi played bishop takes c5. And again, it's so typical of Korchnoi that he just crashes through. It's also possible to play b4 in this position. This is also an excellent move. And I think, well, black is just really suffering here. For example, like this. And, well, this is absolutely horrible. Because something nasty is happening here. Or, let me see, rook takes, take this. And this is just a fantastic endgame. You know, white is going to win the pawn here. And, well, will there be any difficulty there? If black gets a blockade on d6, I suppose there's a slight hope of drawing this. In any case, let's go back. But b4, I think it looks very strong. But bishop takes c5 played by Korchnoi. And again, it's just typical Korchnoi. You know, he just played in such a direct way. So if knight takes, then castles, queen. So I love that. The first move with the king, well, castles at move 24 and a winning move. So the game went like this. Funnily enough, there's still a little bit of work here, but it's so straightforward. It's like everything is with a forward gear. Every move, you can feel the energy behind Korchnoi's moves. You know, he hasn't gone backwards. He hasn't stalled at all in this game. So now he is a pawn up. Better to play this move, actually. This would be absolutely crushing. He didn't do that. I mean, he played here. Probably he just forgot that the knight was being trapped. I love that. Casting at move 33. So what's he got after that fantastic attack, that brutal attack? He's just got himself a winning endgame. Look at black's pieces. It's still a result of this miserable opening, the Czech Benoni, because black is so cramped. Black's pieces have no room. And now Korchnoi finished off. I'll just zip through these final moves. But it's fairly straightforward. Yes, IG2D says route 1. It is route 1. Not how Brentford play at all. And he got there. That is what you call the initiative. Just fantastic. But okay, let me just go back. So this is the problem with the Czech Benoni, that actually black's counterplay is limited by these pawns. And that's why it's not popular at the top levels, because the top guys, they like to have counterplay. This is the thing. Sorry, just there was a question about the difference between that and another kind of Benoni. So this is a normal Benoni. And this is, you can see this is completely different, because black has counterplay here and on the E file. So the fact that white and occupy c4 isn't as serious. Still actually quite dodgy for black if white knows what he's doing, but okay, that's another story. But yes, this is the problem with the Czech Benoni. If we have time, I'll show another Korchnoi game, and this time against bishop e7, the more traditional Czech Benoni. But let's take a few questions before I go any further. Hi there. So here we go. Let me go back and see what you've been asking. I missed some questions earlier. A young chess player asked, do you know any good books for beginners? 1,000 to 1,500 ELO. I have to think about that. 1,000 to 1,500, that's very specific. I'm just looking at my bookcase behind me, and there are more books over here. You can't see them. I've got hundreds and hundreds. I think do you know what? At that level, I think it's best to play as much as possible. You can reflect on your games afterwards. I mean, this is a nice book. There you go. This happens to be to hand. I like this book, The Art of Checkmate, by Georges Renaud and Victor Kahn. These are two Frenchmen, and this was, I think, published in the 1940s, I think, first. Of course, this is a reprint from 2015, published by Batsford. I think it was published originally in the 1947 in Monaco. And that just shows you lots of different checkmating ideas. So maybe at that level, maybe the most important thing is to get a bit of inspiration. And you've got to learn to put the ball in the back of the net, when you're starting. So that kind of checkmating pattern, I think, is absolutely essential. And so give that a go. But play as much as possible. Okay. Will I be reading Ray Keane's book about the Carlsen-Caruana match? Nope. Chess Improvements says Silman's books are very good. They are very good. Yeah. I particularly like his Endgame manual, as I've mentioned many times before. Luc Bastin asks, from your DVDs, seems clear you love the geometric beauty of many endgames. What types of endings do you most like to play and why? Just generally, I enjoyed playing endgames where I stood better. The ones where I was worse weren't much fun. Although sometimes it's very satisfying to draw an endgame where one's worse. So I can think of some rook and pawn endgames where I've been worse and somehow pulled it out of the bag. I don't know. Most endgames where you squeeze out a win are very satisfying, whether it's rook and pawn endgames. Pawn endgames. There are a couple of pawn endgames that I really like that I won. One against Harry Schussler and one against what's the guy's name? Igor Ivanov. Right. Philippe Degremont asks, this weekend the Open of Capelle-le-Grand started just across the channel. Only 2 English club level players among 320. Why not any strong English players like 25, 30 years ago? Impressive. Yeah, that's a great pity. I played in Capelle-le-Grand, and it was a great tournament. I really enjoyed it. I have no idea why there are so few English players there. That sounds very, very strange. Emanuele Romano says, how about Orgard's books? Frankly, they're at too high a level. Jacob's books are superb, but I think they're way too strong for that group of players, 1,000 to 1,500. Way too advanced. IG2D asks, where do you stand on the great Nimzo My System debate? I started it as a young player. Looking back, I think it just stunted my ability to think for myself. Well, I mean, I quite like my system. What can I say? You know, like anything, if you treat it too seriously, if you stick to it too religiously, then that's a mistake. Tim says it's so boring. Oh, okay. Jens Peterson says there's just so much out there for all levels these days. Some of my juniors at ELO 1000 to 1500 love the Magnus Trainer app, to mention one thing, but I do agree with Daniel that simply playing is good. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Magnus Trainer app is really great. Yeah, and there are, as you say, there are so many different things, you know, on chess.com, on playchess.com. There are some great tools. Tim asks, at what level should players move from playing systems to learning opening lines? Oh, wow. Let me think to my own experience. I think it's a very natural development, actually. Because I agree, it's good to start with systems, but when those systems come unstuck, and you find that players start to find that those systems simply aren't working because their opponents have found an antidote for that system, that's when very naturally you should go back to the drawing board and start to play more detailed lines. So I think it's a very natural process, actually. If one is reflecting on one's own chess, then I think it would happen very, very naturally. That you'd realize you have to play something more specific to get a decent position. Lemon Cake, hello. Greetings to you. Douglas Squirrel asks, do you think you'll cover more bullet chess on the channel? It's a really different game, but fun when it's Magnus. You know, I just thought it was interesting to see what Magnus is up to. Generally, I mean, the quality of the games is not high. I mean, I'm not talking about Magnus's chess. I'm talking about his opponents. So, in a sense, that's not interesting if you know, he's not up against very strong opposition. However, he's the world champion. His games are interesting, and it's interesting to see how he plays. So now and again, if the opportunity arises, then I will look at Magnus's games, bullet games. But generally, I don't think I would look at too many other players. Sashi247 asked, do you encourage your students to learn about the history of previous greats, and how important do you think is to learn about them? I think it's really important, because if you look at the history of chess and the great players, then it gives you a kind of hook to hang games on, so that, you know, if you look at the games, great classic games by Alyakin, then, you know, you can learn something from those, and you play in a particular style, and Botvinnik and so on. So yes, I think it's really important to understand the development of chess, the classics, basically. Right, I'm going to show you some more chess, and I did promise that I was going to look at a game that was sent to me by Tim Worrell, who you can see there in the chat, and one of his pupils, I believe. So just a moment. This was played by Daniel Gallagher, and it was played in the 4NCL, that's the National League here in the UK. And he was playing a grandmaster, Glenn Fleet, who's a very old friend of mine. And, well, I'm going to say, well, yeah, we can see what happened. It was actually a draw, but it shouldn't have been a draw, actually. Let me show you this game. Just 1 second. I thought it was an interesting game. So here we go. So Daniel Gallagher, young English player, rated 21-22 when this game was played. Glenn has been playing the same systems for years. And here he plays what's called the Cambridge Springs opening with Queen A5. Of course, Bishop E7 will lead us back into an orthodox Queen's Gambit. But the Queen A5 move is the so-called Cambridge Springs variation. Philippe Degremont says, yeah, Glenn has played in Capelle as well. Absolutely. Both of them, apparently. Okay. And this is one of the main lines. Now, Glenn plays knight b6. I think bishop b4 is a stronger move, personally. But this is so typical of Glenn that this line involves a pawn sacrifice for white. And Glenn, he loves taking pawns. This is so typical of him. It's very funny. Honestly, I mean, this game was played in 2016, but if you'd shown me this game from 30 years before, I'd have said, yep, that's Glenn. He likes to take pawns. And knight d2. This is an excellent move, actually, because it basically means that he's going to be able to grab a bishop. And I suspect that Glenn has played similar to this previously, and I suspect Glenn had prepared this system and just thought, well, I have an extra pawn. But frankly, I would take white's position every time here. Mohammed Ben Al-Hajj says, like Yassarwan says, gift me the pawn, gift me the pawn, or give me the pawn. Well, would you really want this pawn? I look at white's position and I think, yes, please. Beautiful center, beautiful bishops, harmonious pieces, and a king side here, which doesn't have many defenders. And I'm thinking to myself, yes, I would go for this every time. Bishop b1, excellent move. So basically, he is preparing to potentially get a battery on this diagonal, but also preparing to just lift these rooks up and over. Just a second. Sorry, I'm just fiddling with Windows here. Okay, so what do you think white's next move should be? Because I think that the way white plays this is really good. And a kind of classic attack here. So this is worth considering. Oh, it's all gone quiet while you're all considering this position. We have a whole range of views here. No one has actually. I was going to say no one suggested the move, but finally we have someone that has suggested the move. Interesting. It just shows, when I'm playing through this, I think, yeah, that'll do. That looks pretty nice. Seems very straightforward, and we've got about 16 different suggestions, which is quite funny. Right. So we've got a couple of suggested d5. I'm not quite sure why I can't just take that. Because, well, I guess I can block this one out with g6 or f5. I'll go f5 actually. That's solid enough. So no, not d5. Rook c3. Rook c3 or rook d3. Well, it's for the time being it's blocked, so not this one. Stefan says push Harry up the board. Yeah, we've had several suggest this. Notabus 81 or Notabus 81 and Chess Improvement would like to play h4. Yes. Well, it makes a lot of sense. Put this one here, and that will ensure that this diagonal is open. So that's good news. Yeah, excellent. So this is what happened. Okay, went for it now and made room. But now that these guys are fixed, then this makes a lot more sense. Now black played f6. I'm surprised that Glenn didn't just go f5 here, actually, because it seems to me that black needs to fight back. Now, I know this is very risky because it cedes the e5 square, but at least you get the f5 square. Now, maybe not here. Perhaps I've got to think again in this position. Maybe perhaps we can play c5. That looks a bit better. And maybe this one comes here. Well, it's a tricky one. Anyway, he played f6. Mohammed Ben El Hard says black is busted. It's not that clear, actually. It's not that clear. So white is teeing up for a potential sacrifice. Of course, queen takes will run into this one. So this is nice build-up play. And this is pretty miserable if white has to play the knight back. It's not very pleasant at all. Okay, I'm going to ask you, what should black play in this position? Black to play, what would you do? Because we've just heard that Mohammed Ben El Hajj says black is busted, but actually it's not so clear. There's always a dilemma. What do you do? Do you sit there and passively, or do you somehow try to break out? Bishop h6, it's black to play, folks. It is black to play. And bishop h6, well, if black could pass and allow bishop h6, that would be good. And we've got various suggestions here. We've got one. Yeah, we've got a couple of guys that want to play c5. c5, I think, is a good move. Because after this, well, for a start, we trade a pair of rooks. That helps. Then let's play that one with a threat. And then I'll recapture here. And this bishop is working. And just for a moment, this rook could be a little bit offside. I just feel this is the moment when black should break out. You know, this game is still in the balance. You know, there is some counterplay here. But instead of c5, rook d8 played. And now this is where things start to go wrong. Question is, can't we play bishop takes h6 after c5. I don't think so. It doesn't look right to me. But why can't I simply play here? So you want to take again, and take again, and well, I'm not going to play here because that will allow that one. If I come here, now you want to do this, do you? Fair enough. And then I play this one. Aha. That's the end of that, I'm afraid. Because after this, I put the rook in the way. Yeah. I'm afraid that will be a way to blow it. 8 back we go. So this is the game continuation. Rook d8. e5 played. And this is now very, very unpleasant. Yeah, I was wondering about rook d5 actually. It felt as though this could offer black some counterplay, but this is a really annoying move actually. After this, you know, this one comes across, and actually there are still lots of weaknesses here and along this diagonal. So I think this is just good for white, basically. And we can see the power of the bishops now. This is really strong. Good play by white. Okay, finally c5 comes, but this is pretty miserable now. Bishop a4, excellent move. If the rook comes here, we can take and down here. So bishop c6 played, and now d5. Excellent idea, exploiting the pin. So that rook is working hard. I'm just going to get to the final position of the game, but something strange happens here. Well, I think rook g3 is a very strong move, but I'm assuming this was time pressure. And here, they've reached the time control, and this is where the players agreed to a draw. Yes, shocker. They agreed to a draw in this position. So my question for you is, how would you play here? If you were white, how would you try and win this position? Arsalan Baghdadi says a4. He says that 4 times. Very good. Rook e6, no, that hangs something. Oh, you want to push the d pawn through, but yeah, I'm not sure that's going to work. Mohammed Ben El Haj says, what a miserable night. Yes, you're absolutely right. I mean, this knight on g8 is terrible. And for that very reason, I'm afraid this must have been just a loss of nerve in accepting this draw. Because this is obviously just fantastic. I think the thing is, there's no need to rush things. So I know g4 has been suggested, a4 suggested. After a4, then there's maybe a little bit of counterplay with the rook coming here. So everyone that suggested f4. Well done. I think this is a very good move. So it basically, you know, in these kind of positions, you just want to make sure that they can't flap around at all. So this just completely shuts in, well, locks these pawns, so this knight is going nowhere, the rooks are going nowhere. And then, let me just come back here, and then we might turn to playing like this. A4. Now I think A4 is incredibly strong. Okay, also a nice move. Just, there's no need to rush these things. When you've got this kind of position, don't rush it. Just make sure everything is right before you break through. And then A5. Completely winning for white. So this one is hit. This one is hit, so the rook can't come across to defend. You know, in these kind of positions, you want to win without a battle. You get the preparation right, then black's position will just fall apart here. There's no need to go in for some kind of glorious sacrifice. Aha, Daniel said he was so winning until he missed rook g3, then just was shocked that he was going to have to start all over again. Couldn't see a way through. Oh. Do you know what? I think if he'd just reflected for a few moments, he'd have seen that actually it was really easy to break through. And that, I mean, I think the first thing is, you don't need to see a way to break through. All you need to see is this knight has no moves at all. And from that starting point, then you relax. Then you can play 5 moves and you don't even need to do anything in those 5 moves. Just make sure that black can't move. And then you start to think, okay, how can I break through? A4, A5 is easy. He obviously just, the shock overcame him and he couldn't think clearly. What a pity, because it was a very, very good game, I have to say. Robert Laking asked, do I know I am Andy Horton? I do not. Right, moving on, let's come back. So I'm going to wrap things up fairly soon. Maybe I'll just show you one more little puzzle before we go on. Just a couple of things, actually, before I show you, I'll show you a final puzzle before I go. One of Dos says, hey Danny, you're going to be at the Grenka tournament this year. Don't think so, no. Let me see. By the way, I would encourage everyone to support the channel. And you can do that by watching the videos, but also by supporting us on patreon.com. There are some great things on offer. For example, opening surveys, opening playlists. If you want to study a particular opening, then we've organized fantastic playlists of previous videos, and I introduce the openings and show you what the important lines are. It's a really useful resource. $10 a month will get you that. So you get extra videos with puzzles. You get a newsletter and a test game. $10 a month, guys, it's a bargain. $5 a month, also get nice newsletter and stuff. I would encourage you to check out patreon.com. And what else is there? Oh yeah, if you want to do a one-off donation, then PayPal. You'll find the link in the description. So do support the channel. I'm going to show you one final little puzzle before I go. Let me see. What about this one? Let me see. Oh, this is fun. Here we go. Just a second. While I switch windows. Now, this was composed by Pietro Carrera, who is famous in the chess world, composed in 1617. So how, that's my question for you, how is Pietro Carrera famous in the world of chess? Not for this position, but he's famous for something else. He was a priest, actually, Pietro Carrera, also studied law, I think. Mark Halsby, will I cover the other Korchnoi Czech Benoni in the next Hangout? I will do. Yeah, that's a good idea. I will do. Sorry we didn't have time. He is the Sicilian, yes, indeed. Pietro Carrera was from Sicily, and he recommended after e4 that black plays c5, and that's how it's called the Sicilian. Ruy Lopez was from a Spanish priest, and Pietro Carrera was an Italian priest. You see, those are the only guys that had enough time to study, the priests. So how does white play win this one? Okay, okay, we've got various suggestions here. All right, someone suggested, okay, we've got loads of suggestions. So after king f4, a couple of people want to play king f4. Okay, fine. And I'll play here. Your move. If you want to do this, let's keep going. What do you do next? King g3. Okay, got to go back. So I play here. Now, how does white win this position? Keep going, guys. Keep going. You might have lost if you play king e4, by the way. Basically, you've got to somehow block these pawns. And then black will be in Zugzwang because his king will have to move and one of these pawns will go through. So the question is, how do you block out these pawns? Absolutely, Mohammed Amin, you have to put black in Zugzwang. Okay, so king g2. Now keep going, guys. After this move, what do you do? White's next move, please. Over to you. What do you think white should do? King f2. All right, we'll go with king f2. Very good. Okay, and if I play this move, what do you do? Here's the important position. What do you play here? White to play and win. No, absolutely not any legal move. Absolutely not. You've got to get this one right. Yes. Yes. Okay, we've got 2 correct suggestions. 3. Got to play king g1. It's a very well-known position. So if this one, you block the pawns. And if this one, you block them out like this. And if this one, you block them out like this. There you go. And then at the other end of the board, it'll be black's turn. And one of the pawns goes through. There you go. So you just have to be careful with the king here, basically. Quick action replay. And just follow the pawns down. King g1. Only move to win. For example, if you play here, and there's trouble, this will win for black. For example, here, 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 checkity, checkity. And that will do nicely. Nicola asks, are all the moves only moves? Well, they are to this point. Here, there are other ways to go. You don't have to play king f4. You can play king h4. This also wins because we transpose here. But once we get to this position, basically you have to play very precisely. And that king g1 is the key move, because if black wants to, black can reach this position. So you have to understand that this is a winning position. Okay, we'll leave it there, folks. Okay, thanks for watching. Remember, at the moment, out of kind of tournament time, I'm going to be posting videos on Wednesday and Saturday. So look out for fresh videos posted on Wednesday and Saturday. When there's a big tournament coming, of course, there'll be daily posts. And don't forget, if you want to support the channel, please do click on the PayPal button. You'll find it in the description or on patreon.com. And I think there are some great tools there to improve your chess. And of course, if you're not a subscriber, then do click on that subscribe button and click on the bell for instant notifications. Thanks everyone for watching. Thanks for your questions. Thanks for joining in on the chat. See you later.